So this month, we're going to talk about and delve into something I call the D word, debt. Many Canadians find themselves in debt. In fact, 53% of Canadians were in debt in 2018, and now 56% of Canadians are in debt. The question is, are you one of them? Are you finding yourself preoccupied with your debt, worrying about your debt, or worse, ashamed of the amount of debt you're carrying? Is your debt getting in the way of you being able to sleep comfortably at night? Is your debt also keeping you from being able to save for retirement? Getting in the way of you being able to do the things you want to do for your children in terms of putting money away for their education? We're going to talk all things debt this month because debt is a problem specifically for Canadian society. Of all of the G7 countries, we actually are carrying the most debt of all of the G7 countries. And at one point, back in 2008, when we had the financial crisis, we were the shining example of what fiscal management could look like. So what happened? What happened in the last 8 or 10 years? Why are Canadians becoming more comfortable with debt? And are you one of them? We're going to talk about debt. We're going to talk about strategies to pay down debt. And we're going to look at what you can do right away to improve your financial situation, reduce your interest costs, and take more control of your financial future and really work towards building your financial fortress. So stay tuned for this month's Timely Tips. So, Miss Sharon.
Hey, Jackie, here we are again.
We're back again this month, Miss Office Mom.
Right.
For those of you who don't know, Sharon is our office mom, our client experience person who helps clients as they move through our practice. And so this month's Timely Tips is very timely. We're talking about debt. As I had said in the intro, 53% of Canadians are in debt, and way more are in debt than they were last year. So why are people getting so comfortable with debt? What's getting in the way of them paying off debt? And what do you see when you're talking to people who are considering coming into our practice?
I'm seeing a lot of people coming to me. Here's the funny thing is, I know I'm reaching out to people who have reached out to us, but to make the phone call back to me, it takes time because they don't want to have that conversation. They know they need to have the conversation, but it's humbling.
What's getting in the way?
What's getting in the way is life gets in the way, of course, but also the burden of the financial vortex that they're in. When they finally do reach out or we do connect, they go, whew, okay, I need to do it, and thank you for keeping up with me.
Yes, our professional nagger.
That's right. Mhm. But it's the truth. They really do feel relieved once the conversation starts. It's just getting to that.
Well, I think, there's a lot of shame when it comes to talking about debt. We feel like we've done something wrong. We don't want to look at it. We want to turn away from it. And so sometimes even having that conversation forces us to acknowledge just how much debt we're in.
Just to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and take
kidding.
responsibility for it. And I think that sometimes can be cathartic for people who are actually having a conversation with a professional
Right.
about what they can do about their debt. And so I think it's a really important conversation because you say to me people feel relieved when they finally do have
Hugely
that
relieved, sure.
conversation. And then we can actually start looking at strategies to pay off debt.
It's almost like they've got a wall in front of them, the debt wall.
Yeah,
Right.
but knowing is half the battle. Knowing how much debt you're in is half the battle. So, one of the great things about sitting with a financial professional, and one of the things that people find scary is revealing their financial truth.
Right.
But once you reveal the financial truth, it's then looking at strategies that we can help them with to really tackle their debt, put a plan that'll help them pay that debt off sooner.
And often enough, when I am having these conversations, is they share everything because they want to say, here, it's got to be on the table. If it's not on the table and I don't tell you everything, how can we be helpful to them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And that's the truth.
Absolutely. So I think the first thing when looking at strategies, one of the strategies I really like that I know people get excited about. So once they finally tell us their money truth and we start looking at strategies to tackle debt, one of the things I look at is something called a balance transfer. So if you have a high interest credit card and you've got a bunch of debts on different credit cards. So
Yeah.
you've got all these different debts, one credit card, two credit cards, three credit cards, and you're carrying all three credit cards. And you and I know the average interest rate on a credit card is like 20%.
Easily.
And that's on the low side.
And add to that, the nice new line they have on there is if you pay your minimum balance every month, it will be 65 years before you pay your balance off. And
Yeah.
what kind of weight is that?
Yeah, that's kind of a non-conversation
pretty
starter,
tricky,
don't
yeah.
you think? Like, I think I want to go and tell a professional that it's going to take me 65 years to pay off my debt. Probably no. But hey, I'm not here to
No.
judge as a professional. I'm here to offer strategies to help you to pay off debt in a shorter time
Right.
frame. So one of the strategies I love is a strategy called balance transfers. And really all it is all of your high interest debt, they give you a window, typically anywhere from 9 months to a year. They'll give you a window to transfer all of your credit card debt onto a lower interest rate card. And it's powerful. Sometimes you'll get anywhere from 0% to 3%.
That is amazing.
To even 4%, right?
Yeah.
That basically for that window of 12 months or 9 months, you can move all of your debt to this credit card, this balance transfer with one of the credit card companies that promote it. And you can just Google balance transfer to find one. And so they'll let you apply for the balance transfer. So you still have to have good credit, which we'll
Sure.
talk about in a second. But you can basically transfer your balance there and then use all the money you have, focus on paying down all your debt. So
Principle of it.
which is exactly, because now your interest payment goes from 20% to 3% or 4%, which means you've shaved off so much interest.
Yeah.
You can pay that much more down on principal and then ultimately pay that debt down sooner.
And even in 9 months, can you believe the relief you would feel?
Yes. So the one caveat to balance transfer is you have only a very short time to use it. After 12 months or 9 months, the interest rate will go up.
Yep.
But hopefully during that time period, you would have paid down that much more.
And learn some lessons along
Learn
the
some
way.
lessons, and then you're in a position to negotiate with other lenders lower interest options.
And does
maybe
that
a
help
loan.
your debt score?
Yes,
ratio?
it also helps your credit score as well.
Yeah.
But a part of the strategy is know your credit score, know how much your actual score is, and you can check out your credit score free at Credit Karma. So CREDIT, Karma, KARMA. You can check out your score at Credit Karma to get a free credit report on actually what your credit score is.
Yeah.
A good score, a minimum credit score for the banks to look at you, so you should know this before you go and apply for credit, is 650. If you have a credit score lower than 650, it's going to be a struggle to actually get credit.
Right.
So if you are in that situation, at the end of the video, you can direct message us. We can offer you more tips. We can also offer you a article on 10 things you can do to pay off your credit sooner. So check that out. Direct message us. Hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Sharon, for
It's
coming
achievable.
in.
This is really
Absolutely.
achievable.
This is,
Yeah.
paying off credit is doable. You just have to face how much debt you're in and really be willing to talk about it.
Yep, exactly.
So thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
coming. See you next month
All
for
right, see you
Timely
then.
Tips. Thanks so much.
Bye.
In fact, I'm actually glad we're having a conversation about talking about debt in November, just because it's so much pressure to make these New Year's resolutions and then all of a sudden in this January you're off to the races. I really want to give people more time to plan to pay off debt sooner by giving them some time to look at their budgets, look at how they're spending their money, and put an action plan together that they can get really revved up for and get excited about for the new year. So I'm really glad we're talking about debt today. And I know you and I have had some conversations as well, and you shared a really amazing story about your own journey,
Yes.
dealing with debt, dealing with, budgeting, especially after the loss of your husband. So I wish you could share this story with the community that we have out there, because I think it's a really important story to tell.
So I went through a divorce, and my ex-husband didn't want to pay child support. So at the time, I was working for another financial planner, and my boss had suggested to me that I take out an insurance policy on my ex-husband because the insurable interest would be my 2 children that I had with him. And I was hesitant at first because I thought, oh, he's not going to pay the premium. He'll just cancel the policy. What's the point? And I was advised that I could actually pay the premium myself. And if something were to happen to him, then I would have that money there, to use for the children. And so I took out the policy. He did end up passing away. I did make an insurance claim, and I was able to use the money to save for my children's education and then also help to pay off part of the mortgage. Now, I was lucky because my ex-husband had agreed to let me take out an insurance policy on him. For the people out there that are not so lucky, you can always go to court and have the court decree that insurance policy has to be taken out.
Yeah, as a part of the divorce settlement.
That's right.
And you talk about divorce and you talk about death, two things that affect women in particular.
Yeah, big
Huge,
life
huge.
changers.
And life changes are a big reason that people end up in debt.
Mm-hmm.
People get married and didn't plan to save for the wedding. People
That's
get
right.
divorced. For women, if all of a sudden they're suddenly single and they weren't the breadwinner, what happens to their lifestyle?
That's right.
And
that was part of my problem too, is when we got a divorce, we had the mortgage, we had like a car loan, we had something else. And my ex-husband decided, I don't want to pay any of this, so he claimed bankruptcy and warned me that I had to do the same, or all that debt would have come down on my head as a single mother with 2 kids.
yeah, and that's one of the big reasons that people end up in debt is a death, a divorce or death. So for a widow, now you're unfortunately having to face high interest loans, lines
Yep.
of credit, if they're lucky, credit cards,
Yep.
and carrying that debt because
right.
they didn't plan to be single. They didn't plan and they didn't have anybody insured. So the breadwinner, the person who was making the money, was not insured. And so now they're in a scenario where they have less cash flow and they have to take on more debt.
That's right.
So, one of the tips I wanted to share with you is if you're the person, and we're talking about women, but there's many caregivers out there these days that are men.
That's right.
If you're not the caregiver, do you have a plan in place to protect the breadwinner's income? So you need a plan to protect the cash flow of the person who's bringing the cash flow into the household. So you need a life insurance plan to protect the breadwinner's income. So if something happens to the breadwinner, that money can come into the family and maintain the lifestyle. You also need some type of income replacement and illness plan. So again, if your cash flow, the family's cash flow depends on this money coming in, one of the ways people end up in debt is they get sick. That's
right.
one of the major reasons actually why a foreclosure happens on a mortgage is because the person who has the mortgage gets sick and they had no plan. So simply think seriously as you build your debt plan on making sure that you have a plan for the things you just can't save for. You cannot save for and you cannot plan for someone getting sick or someone dying. And so the best way to deal with that is to have, and the most cost-effective way to deal with that is to have an insurance plan in place that's going to protect cash flow.
No, that's right.
So thank you so much for sharing this wisdom. This is an important message to share with this community, Nydia. So see you next month, Miss Busy Bee.
Thank you.
All right, have a wonderful day. So we've been talking about debt, and I know for a lot of people it's a scary subject. Thinking about debt overwhelms people. There's a lot of shame involved for some people. There's a lot of worry associated with debt, especially for women, and probably because we make less, we live longer, we tend to be the caregivers. We have a lot of reasons to be concerned about how much debt we're carrying. And so, and because there's no other way to go other than facing debt, keep in mind, you're not alone. Unfortunately, 57% of Canadians right now are carrying debt. So the most important thing you can do is create a plan. Face the debt that you're carrying. There's no shame in it. create a strategy to pay off your debt sooner than later. And that might look like renegotiating your debt, looking at a balance transfer that we talked about, talking to a professional about some type of debt consolidation strategy. But again, facing debt is the first step, and it's a really, really important first step, so you can kind of see where you're at. The third thing is live below your means. We never know what the future holds. It's very hard to plan for the future because things happen, life happens. So expect the unexpected, and that could include losing your job, getting divorced, losing a partner. These are things sometimes you can't plan for, but if you live below your means, if you're going through a period of time where your life is good, income is good, things are great, it's a really important time to build your financial fortress. It's an important time to put money away because we don't know if tomorrow the sun will continue to shine. There's just no way to know that. And then the other piece of it is ensure the cash flow of the people you depend on for cash flow. So your family's cash flow really needs to be insured, and the only way to do that is to look at a life insurance plan that ensures the cash flow of yourself and your family. If you're the breadwinner, if you're not the breadwinner, putting some kind of plan in place that injects cash flow into your circumstances if all of a sudden you're suddenly on your own, or if you get sick, there is cash flow there. So you really want to have a plan to ensure your cash flow. And then finally, think about the future. Unfortunately, we live in a society today where we really are encouraged to live day to day and not think about the future. Are you thinking in a few years you might get married? That's a life event, a happy life event. Do you think you might want to buy a car? The sooner you start planning for those things, living below your means, putting money away for that, the less likely you will be in debt. So that's this month's Timely Tips. Thank you so much for listening. We're going to share a bunch of resources. We're going to have a few articles that talk about strategies to pay down debt. We're going to send some resources on what you can do, get smarter about your debt. So please check it out. Again, we really want to know what you think about Timely Tips. We really want to get your suggestions on future posts that we do. Feel free to direct message us if you want some type of a second opinion or consult on how you can pay off your debt sooner. Look at some of the strategies to get into a financial fortune situation and build your own financial fortress. Thank you so much for tuning in this month. Have a great month.